The following footage is one of the rarest moments ever caught on camera, showing what looks like a massive pond squirming with thousands of tadpoles all gathered at the edge, staring down at an approaching catastrophe. The water in their pond is drying up fast, and the only way out is to cross what for them is a massive patch of mud to reach the other pond. While the helpless little amphibians wriggle at the edge, their dad is already outside and he has got a plan. Moments later, using those big, heavy paws, this football-sized frog starts digging. After hours of relentless struggle, he finally manages to cut a stream between the two ponds, clearing a path. And off he goes, leading the way with thousands of his kids behind him. Looks like peak parenting, doesn't it? Too bad that's about as fatherly as it gets, because just moments later, as he's get hungry or maybe just bored, there's a fair chance he'd end up eating those same kids. He will eat anything for that matter. Anything that he can fit into that enormous, creepy mouth. Snakes, reptiles, insects, birds, fellow amphibians, his own siblings or rivals, even toys when kept as pets. Meet the unsettling, voracious eater, the African bullfrog. This is a female African bullfrog. While appearing to be just a stationary, low-profile amphibian blending into the muddy water, right now, she's the eye of a storm. Because she's just entered a pond teeming with giant, thick-necked, and extremely riled-up males who form a tight circle in the center and are preparing for a battle to earn the right to be chosen as her mate. With jaws stretched wide and throats pulsing like war drums, these bloated brutes launched at each other like battering rams, biting, grappling, and crushing anything that dares to challenge. Some are dragged underwater. Others are flung like dead weight. And if one's unlucky enough to stay down too long, he might not leave the pond alive at all. This, however, is just a glimpse of the otherwise relentless brutality of the African bullfrog's world. We'll get to the rest. First, let's give these blood-driven hoppers the introduction they deserve. Pixocephalus adsperus, widely known as the African bullfrog or the giant bullfrog or South African burrowing frog, is one of the largest frogs found across southern, eastern, and central parts of Africa, where it thrives in environments ranging from parched to humid savannas, subtropical and tropical dry shrublands, and seasonal freshwater bodies such as lakes, marshes, canals, and even flooded ditches. The males of this tank-like species can grow up to 10 inches long and weigh about 3.1 pounds, while the females, unlike most frog species, are much smaller, barely reaching half the size of the males. One of the lethal upsides of that massive size is the way it looks, and that alone is enough to set your instincts on edge. Its body is squat and powerful, wrapped in thick leathery skin that comes in shades of dull green to brown, often streaked with earthy tones that help it blend right into the muddy surroundings. Its head is huge, taking up a big chunk of its whole body, with a downturned snout that gives it a nasty, almost menacing expression, and those small, beady eyes set toward the front add a cold, empty stare. Pair that with the disturbingly wide mouth, and you've got a creature that is seriously unnerving to look at. At the front bottom of that mouth sit two tooth-like structures called odontodes. They're made from the same material as human teeth, and they help the frog grab and handle large prey, either by themselves or working alongside the tongue. Like all frogs, African bullfrogs catch smaller or average-sized prey by shooting out their sticky tongue at lightning speed, which latches onto the prey, and then the frog yanks it back into its mouth in one quick motion. This giant bullfrog has its eyes locked on the first of many prey after several days without food. With its bead-like, devilish eyes peeking out from the crusted mud, it waits until the helpless worm moves within reach, and then unleashes a sudden, violent strike, pinning the prey to its tongue and swallowing it in an instant. If it can't fit the whole thing in at once, it uses one of its front limbs to push the rest inside like a scoop. Ambush plays a critical role in its hunting strategy. Using its camouflaged skin, it stays hidden beneath plants, underwater, or buried in mud with only its eyes exposed, tracking prey as it comes closer. And once it's within range, the frog launches forward with its strong, muscular legs, snatching up the prey either with its sticky tongue or depending on the size, directly with its teeth. Its diet includes pretty much anything smaller than itself, from worms and centipedes to rodents, reptiles, birds, fish, and other amphibians, especially frogs, whether a different species or its own kind. When held in captivity, handlers have to be extremely careful not to leave any toys or other small pets inside the tank, because these aggressive eaters will instinctively bite or swallow anything that they can fit inside their mouths. A zookeeper at a private sanctuary in South Africa's capital once witnessed an African bullfrog stumble upon a nest of Rickhouse snakes. It ended up devouring 17 juvenile snakes without being affected by their venom or bites, and that is thanks to its thick, creased skin. That skin, by the way, does more than just block out snake bites. Like other frogs, the bullfrog can breathe directly through its skin and also use it to absorb water. On top of that, they have specialized glands that release a slimy coating that helps keep away harmful pathogens, while also making the frog slippery and moist, allowing it to escape predators or survive the dry, scorching African climate. However, during the peak of arid summers, when rainfall drops below traceable levels and heat becomes extreme, that moist skin alone isn't enough to keep the bullfrog alive. That is why this ingenious amphibian turns to a survival tactic known as estivation, or dormancy in simpler terms. To pull it off, the frog digs out a burrow using its shovel-shaped hind feet and begins shedding its skin, layer by layer, until it forms a hardened shell of its own flesh around its body, known as a cocoon. This suit of armor drops its metabolism to near zero and locks in every drop of water, letting the frog lie buried, unmoving for up to 8 months straight. When the rains finally arrive and moisture returns to the cracked, barren earth, the cocoons soften, and one by one, thousands of these dormant frogs emerge from beneath the sand in what looks like a resurrection of a dead army, rising to hunt again and bring back the chaos. Another thing a good downpour triggers is the start of their mating season. As the rainwater gathers into shallow temporary pools like pans, ditches, and small basins, it creates ideal breeding grounds for these primitive amphibians. Several male frogs gather in these shallow ponds, forming a tight, circular cluster near the center. Each one fights to push closer to the core, challenging others in the way, brawling, wrestling, and in some cases outright killing and eating their rivals to come out on top as the dominant male. The female then approaches the group, swimming quietly beneath the surface of the water. She avoids the smaller, defeated males and only rises near the one that fought his way to the center. Once mating is done, the female lays around 3,000 to 4,000 eggs at the shallow edge of the pond and leaves them behind for the male to watch over. Just 2 days later, the tadpoles hatch. At first, they're omnivores, feeding on plants, insects, alive or dead, and whatever else moves nearby, including their own siblings. But as they grow, the hunger grows with them. Soon they turn into full-fledged carnivores. Within 3 weeks of hatching, the first stages of metamorphosis begins, and that's when the young frog sheds its skin for the first time, crawling out of its old body completely renewed. This process continues throughout its life, as it grows to its football-sized body outgrowing its old skin, and then it sheds again. And being the savage eater that it is, the African bullfrog doesn't let that skin go to waste. It eats that too. Depending on whether it manages to survive being eaten by its own siblings, or worse, by its own father, an African bullfrog that reaches adulthood can live for at least 20 years in the wild, and up to 45 years when kept in captivity. Being a fairly low-maintenance animal, it's kept as an exotic pet in many parts of the world, and in some African countries, it's also served as a delicacy. Thankfully, while humans might eat them, they don't eat us back, though they will bite hard if provoked or pushed to the edge, especially on the fingers, and can easily tear skin and draw blood with those sharp, forward-pointing teeth. So maybe don't try playing ant crusher with your pet bullfrog. As you're about to see, they tend to take it a little too seriously. With thousands of them being born almost every other day, their population remains solid and continues to grow, placing them in the least concern category on the IUCN Red List of endangered species. So yeah, they're not going anywhere anytime soon, which is great news for the ecosystem, I guess. It's just not so great for anyone that has to look at them. I mean, they creep me out, like, a lot. Anyways, let us know your thoughts on the strange, unnerving world of the African bullfrog, and as always, catch you in the next one.